Howdy, guys. Jimmy Song here for Off Chain. I have two very special guests with me: Elizabeth Stark, CEO of Lightning Labs, and John Pfeffer, who's an institutional investor. I wanted to do this show because we had an extraordinary amount of interest about scholarships for my next programming blockchain seminar, and we wanted to talk a little bit more about just the developer education ecosystem in general. Anyway, Elizabeth, sorry. How did this whole idea come about? Why don't you tell us the story?
Yeah, so this is one of those things where I love how it all came together like so quickly, and it was so ad hoc in a very good and fun way. So I think Jimmy, John, and I are all really passionate about the subject of developer education. And I had talked to Jimmy and I had talked to John separately. And then we were all at Satoshi Roundtable. And I sat down with Jimmy and I said, Jimmy, I want to have a conversation with you on how to improve the developer ecosystem, how to get more engineers involved in the community. I've also been known to tweet, the low number of protocol developers saying that we want more and we need to find solutions to get more developers into the ecosystem. So Jimmy and I also got on the subject of getting more female engineers into the ecosystem and came up with this idea to offer a scholarship to a female developer for one of his earlier seminars in Tampa. And then Jimmy and I were talking again and said, well, why don't we offer some scholarships for his next San Francisco seminar? And I knew a lot of great engineers that were really interested in getting into Bitcoin. And the response, I think, Jimmy, was, would you say overwhelming?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had 56 people apply, and I've done these scholarship things before, and we've never had anywhere near it. And they were all women, which was crazy. It's this sort of like untapped resource that we finally got to tap into thanks to Elizabeth. And
so I knew a lot of people in the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin community that were tapped into networks of women in engineering and students, general female developer communities. And not only was the response overwhelming, the number of scholarship recipients, I would say, was overwhelming as well in a very positive way. And then Jimmy and I worked really hard to find some amazing sponsors, and we're very lucky to have one of them here today. And we went from, I'd say, Jimmy, in the past you had 0 full-time participants in your seminars to now 10 participants that are female devs in the San Francisco one, right?
Yeah. We'll have about a third of the class female, and I mean, who cares like what exactly the ratio is or whatever. I'm just excited that we're tapping into more developers, and we're going to have a lot more people contributing to the ecosystem, and it's going to be pretty amazing. Which brings me to you, John. Why are you sponsoring something like this? What's your motivation here?
Well, let me step back. I mean, so I'm an investor, as you mentioned, and so I started investing in Bitcoin a couple of years ago, introduced by Vincent Casares, like so many people, and started not knowing much and learning more and more, and communicating about why I think Bitcoin is such a compelling investment, right? And I come at it that way. I'm not a developer, but it's important to remember, to me, this is an open source software project. Everybody has to contribute somehow, and there's lots of ways to do it. You teach. Elizabeth developed, her team and colleagues developed Lightning. You can learn to develop. You can run a full node, or in my case, as an investor, I can support. And what to support? Well, to me, the most important thing for the long-term health of Bitcoin is a thriving, diverse developer community. And so when Elizabeth and you reached out to me asking for help, it was a no-brainer. This was a fantastic high leveraged thing to do, because it brings new developers into the community. It helps increase the diversity of that developer community. So I was delighted to have the opportunity.
And also Chain Code Labs over in New York were sponsors as well, and they've done a lot of amazing work on the developer education front.
Yeah, they've obviously had their residency program, but they're also sponsoring a bunch of scholarships for this round, and it's kind of crazy. So, John, can you talk a little bit more about what you're hoping that this will do, like sort of in the future, and how you hope that having more developers will, how that will affect your investment and the ecosystem?
Well, first of all, this isn't, I mean, you need lots of developers, and then the nice thing about the way development works in Bitcoin is everybody works on what they want to work on. And that's the way it should be, I mean, I'm for me, it's exciting to be able to bring more developers in because we need more. There's a lot of work to be done. And the bottleneck is talent. Right now, I think we are missing some of the best talent out there, and hopefully this will, begin to scratch that surface. One of the things I hear from companies in the industry all the time is the constraint isn't budget, right? It's talent.
Human capital.
That's the bottleneck.
Yeah. So I've actually gone on some Twitter thread rants, whatever you want to call it, around, again, this issue, which is people say they want to donate and they want to contribute, and that's great. And now we have some tangible efforts like these new scholarships that we're going to talk about in a second in order to donate to. But from our standpoint, so at Lightning Labs, we've had an open protocol developer position for like 9 months now. We wanted to hire folks. We have interns coming in for the summer. One really cool thing is for interns, we say, okay, contribute to, the apps and the code base. So from our standpoint, the best way for us to hire somebody is if they've already gotten involved in the open source community and contributed. And it's like, we don't care where you've gone to college or, what degrees you have. We want to see your code. And that's how we make that decision. And it really does mean that it's open to anybody that wants to learn and get involved, which I think is really powerful. But people, not everyone wants to sit alone, in a room and learn this on their own. I think collaboration is really important, interactive learning. So I actually used to teach at universities. I was a lecturer at Yale and Stanford University. And I really always loved interactive courses, engaging the students. And Jimmy, I actually want to ask a little bit more about the seminar. How do you structure it and how do students learn there?
Well, so the idea is you're supposed to make your own Bitcoin library from scratch. So we start with the very basic primitives, finite fields and elliptic curves. And those are sort of the mathematical primitives that you need in order to do signing and verification. And that's at the heart of every transaction. Then we go through transactions and all of the parsing and all of the verifying and all of the validating and creating. I take everyone from the very basics all the way out, and you have to create the library. I do a little bit of lecturing, then you have to go and code exactly, what I just taught. And I've written all of the unit tests, so you basically just have to make them pass. And it's a 2-day course. I've been told it's about a semester's worth of information in 2 days, which is not easy. And a lot of people have, expressed to me that was really, really intense. And that's the idea. It's a fire hose of information. And the idea is you're going to know this stuff really well by the end, and have the opportunity to master something that's not necessarily very easy.
And Jimmy, I'm curious, what made you start this in the first place? You've done what now, 9 seminars or maybe 10 since last year?
11, but yeah, well, part of it is I saw the big lack, and I think you and John have spoken to this very well. There's a tremendous lack of developers in the community, and everyone is always talking about, where do I find developers? Where do I find developers? And I do have a passion for teaching, and I've been learning this stuff. I remember how hard it was for me to learn a lot of this stuff back in 2013, 2014 when I was learning it. So I wanted to help people out. But I'm not gonna pretend that it's not financially beneficial for me. It obviously is. But I see this as beneficial for me, beneficial for the students, beneficial for the companies, beneficial for the entire ecosystem. It's a win-win-win-win-win. And I love those kinds of things that sort of Bitcoin and like the incentives that it creates. I love it when everything's aligned like that, and it was a no-brainer for me to go for something like that.
Jimmy, I've got a question. What are the requirements if you want to attend? What do you look for?
Yeah, so I generally say you need to have some degree of Python, but the rest of it is something that I can teach you. You might not know what a finite field is. It's actually not that difficult. It's like sort of high school level-ish math. It's just something that they don't teach you in high school because they think calculus is more important or something like that. But it's high school level math. I go through all of it and step by step, and you learn it at a very basic level. So really all you need is some coding experience. And for those people that don't necessarily have that coding experience, I point them to the Coursera course, Python for Everyone. And then I tell them, okay, go do like 20 problems on Project Euler and you should be pretty good. I want to make sure that there's a path for motivated people to be able to take this course. And it does cost money. So the fact that we have scholarships now that, that are available, that makes it so that if you have some motivation and have a desire to contribute to this, you just need to put in some effort and you can get there. And that's I think a hopeful message.
Is it time to announce our new scholarships?
Yeah, I think it would be great. Yeah. So we have scholarships for New York. Exactly how many, we don't know exactly yet, but at least 5. Sponsored by ItBit. But basically there will be 2 set aside for women, 3 that are more general. We also wanted to make it so that
get more scholarships because there are a lot of people that are now excited about this and interested. So
yeah. So I mean, that's just the initial amount. One of the things that John suggested, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, is that there's probably a lot more people than John and Chain Code Labs that want to help the developer ecosystem grow. So one of the suggestions that he made to me, which I thought was absolutely brilliant, is actually having donation addresses so that if you want to see the developer ecosystem grow, you can donate, and I will put that money towards scholarships for additional people to get into the ecosystem. There's already an application process to get into my seminar.
One thing that I think is so great about it is it's skills based. It's you have a coding question and it's not like, oh, we're evaluating it on the basis of an answer to something. No, this is a skill that people are showing they're capable of doing, which is cool.
Yeah, and I thought it was a really good idea, John. I'm really hoping that we'll get sort of community engagement on this, and I really I thought it was a great idea. Hopefully, we can see a lot more engagement in that way. So let's talk a little bit about sort of the demand side. So Elizabeth, how many developers could you hire right now, and what do you see as sort of like the demand for developers in this industry?
So yeah, we're definitely hiring a couple. There's no like exact number. Protocol is really important on our end. So one interesting point that I've made as well is, in the Lightning ecosystem, there are a lot of application developers, and that's awesome. And there are a lot of people that have been building apps, and we have the whole API front. So that's certainly in demand. I think there are people that are getting into that, and it's less, upfront cost, which is cool. But the protocol side is, I think, where there's a lot of demand now, just because there's such a shortage as well. And at the same time, it just takes longer to get up to speed on the protocol front. And I think, for example, our sponsors, Chain Code, some of the folks got involved in Bitcoin protocol development. And I believe it took them, with a substantial computer science background, a year to really get up to speed to contribute to Bitcoin Core and whatnot. So I think there's application development's awesome, and we have an amazing community, the Lightning community generally. For LND, our implementation, there's a Slack channel with like more than 2,000 developers and testers. And one important point is, not everyone's going to be a developer. There are many other ways to contribute. We have people that contribute in terms of testing, QA, helping to build apps, giving design feedback. So anybody can help and contribute. But there is a huge amount of demand on the protocol side of things. So, we certainly are looking for folks. Now, that's not to say, sometimes people think if you had like 1,000 developers, everything would be solved. There's this concept of the mythical man, or you could say mythical person month, that if you add more developers, everything will be better. And I don't think we need to add 1,000 more. But we certainly need some more protocol folks right now.
And John, sort of speaking as an investor, how much do you think like a protocol developer is worth these days?
Gosh, I really don't know the answer. I mean, I'm sure a lot. And the question is value and salary, right? I mean, there's folks who are incredibly generously giving their time, for not at all what they could earn to Bitcoin, and then people who.
Developers are volunteers, right, and have been for many years too. Yeah.
But also, there's great opportunities for those, it's also fantastic, lucrative job opportunities. I don't run a Bitcoin company, so I don't know, and I would be silly to sit here and reel off numbers. But I know from my friends who run these companies that they're desperate for talent, and they have the ability to pay well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great industry to get into, certainly, and hopefully a lot more people watching this can see, let's make some more developers out of this. So what do you guys think?
Jimmy, how do we scale Jimmy?
Well, I'm working on it. I am writing a book, so hopefully that's like another way in which people can work or can learn about Bitcoin. It's I'm taking a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching and condensing it into a book. Not everyone learns that way, obviously. A lot of people, like you said, Elizabeth, like they like to learn in a classroom setting or with other people or sort of interactively with more coaching and things like that. And that's, I think I'll always have demand for these sort of interactive seminars. But I do want to have the book out maybe later this year. And I've had TAs that are interested in doing their own seminars that are similar but in a different language, perhaps, so they can reach more people.
What languages are people interested in?
I think JavaScript, certainly. That's sort of like the lingua franca of programming languages these days. So that may be one. There are others. I think it has to be sort of something a little more scripty, just because it's harder to teach with, say, something like C++, because there's the code tends to be a little more verbose. So, we'll see. This is partly why I keep doing these seminars all over the world. Is I want to make sure that there are other countries that are hit, and we get this sort of like a global buy-in for. More developers, and as you have that helps every ecosystem mini ecosystem sort of develop. So,
and also part of what makes this community so cool is you can be anywhere in the world, and for example, for our team for Lightning Labs, we have a developer in Norway, we have an engineer who's kind of in different countries all the time. We're a distributed team. We have an engineer in Colorado, and we'll hire people anywhere. We don't care, where you are. And also, we don't care if you have a college degree, a master's degree, or dropped out. We care about, your ability to write good code and to learn quickly. So I think there's a huge opportunity right now for people that want to learn and want to get involved. There's going to be so much demand for this moving forward. And we need to get more engineers and better educational effort. We need to scale Jimmy. We need to get better educational efforts. Also universities. I don't know how much both of you have interacted, but I've been hearing about new efforts as well on the part of universities. There are research centers. There are a lot of new classes now around Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So that's a good angle as well.
Yeah, I've been offered to teach a class at UT Austin. I'm still not sure whether or not I'm going to be able to do it, just because the time commitment's so high. But I would teach more or less the same material. It really is a semester's worth. So I could definitely stretch it out over a semester.
Could you do a Coursera course?
Yeah, I've thought about like doing an online course. The thing about like doing an online course is I want it to be really good. I haven't really found a platform that I feel comfortable enough with that has high enough quality that I could do it. I certainly would be very interested in doing it.
And it's when people are there in person, they're in it. Whereas it's easier to if it's an online course to kind of go offline, but the other trade-off is then you can reach far more people online. But you want engagement, right? And also having peers in the room as well, and having a TA. It's possible, but I think it sounds like it would be a very different experience than being in the room together and all building it together, right?
Yeah. The peer experience is something that I totally underestimated when I first started this. But that ends up being some of the most fruitful relationships that a lot of students make. And we always sort of like go out for a drink after the second day and just sort of bond. And that's always the most popular.
Your course?
Oh,
it's like once they've survived, everyone goes and bonds, right?
Yeah. And it's a great way to like sort of meet people that are sort of at the same stage that you are. And a lot of people have sort of like collaborated afterwards, trying to start companies or whatever, and they'll call each other up. There's a Telegram group that I run that's all alumni, and it's always like sort of high quality technical discussion, not like woohoo, it hit this price and isn't that cool. It's like, hey, there's this signature scheme. Can someone explain why we need to do this particular part of it? And that's obviously valuable as well, and that's something I didn't anticipate when I started this thing, which it makes sense now that I think about it. But the peer aspect of it is something that's very hard in an online community, and something that hopefully we can figure out to scale this thing better and have more developers in this whole thing.
So one area that I think has been very effective thus far is the developer meetup communities. So I actually met a lot of my friends in Bitcoin in the developer community through the SF Bitcoin Devs meetup. New York City has the BitDevs. And actually last night, BitDevs organized this awesome workshop on Lightning where about 100 people interactively installed LND and then they created actually their own local SynNet, and people were sending transactions with each other. And everyone was there. They had to bring their laptops. They had to have BTCD and LND pre-installed. And it was awesome to see, again, this peer learning where people were helping each other. It was very interactive. People broke up into groups. And so seeing those kinds of communities self-organize and educate, I think can play a big role with this as well.
Yeah, I would love to eventually do sort of like a programming Lightning class, something like that, where you build it from scratch, so you can sort of like learn on a protocol level. That's like, I got way too many things on my plate right now, so it's, maybe if after I'm scared, that's the next thing I want. What's that?
Scaling Jimmy is going to be a key Bitcoin debate,
There are people that want to make me larger. Other people want to make me more efficient. Yeah, I don't know. So question for you, John. What are your perspectives on how we can sort of work together to sort of make Bitcoin better in this way? Like, what are some of your thoughts on and ideas on how we can do this and get more education into this industry?
Well, gosh. That's a really good question. And I set out at the beginning of this year, I said, look, so late last year, I was thinking, what can I give back to Bitcoin? And I had a couple of priorities. One was learn about development and look for opportunities to support. And so I'm still learning. I mean, it's only April. And
we're also learning though, John.
And the other way, by the way, just Little Princess is helping with some scaling initiatives and working on something with a couple of other folks and to see how to help developers and companies interact better to adopt best practice in terms of technologies that already exist to scale Bitcoin. But that'll probably for another time because it's not quite public yet. And I also support Coin Center, which is a fantastic group. Now it's not development, but I think they do great things for the community. Now, when it comes back to how to grow, look, obviously we need to scale you. We need more seminars. We need to make your seminars accessible, which obviously the scholarships contribute to. Beyond that, I guess it would be interesting to think about, Jimmy. Could you train teachers?
I'm working on that as we speak. I like I said, I have that one guy that I'm helping him develop his JavaScript version of this course, and we'll figure something out. We have another TA coming to San Francisco. He may take my material and be able to teach it, and he's done this sort of thing before. So I definitely want to scale it and see how far we can take this and sort of really build this out, definitely.
And I actually just want to give a shout out to Andreas Antonopoulos with his Mastering Bitcoin book, because I think that is a great starting point for people that want to get started. And,
I bought more copies of that book than almost anybody, I guarantee it, because I give out that book to each one of my students. And that's, even if they already have it, I'm like, just take it and go give it to a friend of yours, because it's such a great book and a great resource. And one of the nicest things he ever said, Andreas ever said to me was, I would like the books that says you may also like on Amazon to be yours, because the stuff that's out there right now is crap. So that's probably one of the nicest things that he's ever said.
But yeah, I think getting more people that learn the material, that start contributing, that get involved in the ecosystem, and they can go off and get involved and teach. And I think it's also an interesting point. So for example, last night at the Lightning developer workshop, and that wasn't build your own Lightning, but it was get up and running with LND using the command line. So it was still, a developer workshop. It was run by our soon-to-be intern. His name is Wilmer. And, Wilmer's been contributing, but it's not like Wilmer needed to have years and years of experience to organize his workshop. So other community members can do things like that too. And, peer learning can be a big part of that. You don't have to have contributed to Bitcoin for 5 years and, in order to do these types of things. I think there are a lot of different ways to get involved.
And certainly organizing a workshop or something like that is something that anyone can do. You just what I found about a lot of protocol developers and things is that they're very generous with their time, and if you invite them to something like a workshop to sort of help lead it or something like that, they're happy to do that, because they realize, just as John and Elizabeth do, that creating more developers, creating more interest in doing this stuff, like sort of at a very basic level, is very useful to the entire ecosystem and community. And this is what it's all about, right? Like making it better, and that's an excellent idea, Elizabeth, and hopefully some of our viewers.
Sorry, I was going to say I would underline that. I mean, Bitcoin's a super welcoming community. I found, right? I mean, I'm.
It doesn't always have that reputation.
But that's totally undeserved. It's incredibly welcoming, and people are very open and welcoming, and people are judged by what they contribute, not by anything else. Fantastic.
I will say as well, on the Lightning side of things, we've really made an effort to craft a developer community to be welcoming, and the community thus far has been amazing. We've collaborated our LND implementation. We've worked with 2 of the other major implementations to work on the spec. We've also gotten outside contributors to that as well. We've done all this interoperability work, which has been awesome. And just the response from the community. I mean, every day I go on like Twitter or Slack and there's a new app somebody built, or people love building explorers, although caveat, explorers are not a definitive view of the network. And Lalu, aka Roast Beef, will be happy I said that. And just a lot of really cool developer tools are coming out as well. And it's organic. It's coming from this grassroots side of things, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, not artificial like maybe some of these other projects, right? Where they have a nice slush fund for people. If they want to build something, please build us something. We'll give you money.
It is going to be grassroots. Like that's who we are. And that's, I think, the nature of the community. And there's a lot that can be done there. By the way, I do have another idea in terms of, I mentioned, I think this to you in a previous discussion, but so Google has Google Summer of Code. Uh-oh, is everything okay?
Yeah, sorry. I think it's one of my kids, actually.
So Google has Google Summer of Code, and it is a summer stipend for, I think it can be students, but other folks that can apply and contribute to an open source project. It would be cool to have a similar program in terms of Bitcoin related open source projects as well, where I believe it's pretty independent. People work, on a particular project, but they can be in touch with the project as well. So some types of fellowships or Summer of Code or other initiatives could be really great too, to bring more people into the ecosystem, get them up to speed, get them in touch with projects, give them opportunities to learn as well. So fellowships and then other things like that, I think could be. But it's not just about the funding, it's about who would run them. And often a lot, the devil's in the details. It's like there's so much to do right now. Jimmy, you're in demand to teach, you're in demand to do development work, our team as well. We would love to train more people, but we've been working on our, beta, and now we've got to improve the beta.
Yeah, I mean, these are all fantastic ideas, and really, we just need people to step up and run some of these programs. Try to fund some of these programs.
Decentralized. It needs to be the way Bitcoin is. Decentralized. A lot of cool initiatives, all around.
Mm-hmm. And there's obviously a very deep and large community, and hopefully this inspires you to get involved. A lot of people are asking, well, what do I do if I'm not a developer? How can I contribute? Well, there's obviously the financial aspect, but there are lots of cool ideas like this too, and we need entrepreneurs, frankly, that will sort of gather this stuff up, and if you're affiliated with a university or something like that, you can certainly help in this type of endeavor. And if you're at a company, you can try to do initiatives like this. It's good for everybody, right? And yeah.
Getting the word out, that for our scholarship, I contacted people in the community that I knew that were excited about funding, getting more female developers in the ecosystem, and they tweeted it out and sent it out. And we, helping spread the word is really helpful as well. And then even on the Lightning side, in the community, there are people that want to write about Lightning. They want to write for a non-technical audience. There are people that are helping with the design front, that are testing. There are a lot of ways to get involved. It's not just one way.
Any other ways we can get involved, John?
Well, gosh, I mean, I'm looking for ways. And in fact, one of the difficult things I found as an investor who just says, look, I can contribute financially, is finding mechanisms to do that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so this is a good one because there's actually, you have a seminar, so I can say, all right, I'll fund some scholarships. Chain Code is amazing. But of course, that's privately funded by its founders. They're really one of the things that I would like to support. I'm talking with, for example, my friend Steve Lee about this, is trying to create something that you can use as a vehicle to help fund different things if you want to support financially beyond the couple of things that already exist. It's actually not that easy when you set out to do it. If you're not really able to say, sort of hire a developer yourself because you don't have a company. So I'm working a little bit on that. We'll see what comes out of that.
And interestingly, there's been a lot of interest in funding protocol developers, which is awesome. But the question was often well, which protocol developers? And then it's okay, we need to get the protocol developers trained and educated so then we can fund the protocol developers. So there's an interesting question around let's get more into the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. I think there's interesting things happening. I mean, this is one. As I said, there's a couple of others. I think by the end of this year, there will be a couple of vehicles and mechanisms to do more. I see a lot going on.
Well, it sounds like, John, that you would be willing to fund more initiatives if good, if people were to come up with interesting ways to help the ecosystem. So that hopefully our audience can take that to heart and try different things and make things happen.
I do think there's funding out there. I mean, you obviously put me on the spot. I've committed to do. I've committed to do a couple of things, which I'm very excited about. But I am confident that if people have initiatives that, that they're, between me and people like me or other people in the space and companies, there's funding out there. If there's a good project, and network a little bit, we can be helpful in all of that. But I honestly would say that for a really good project, with the right ambitions and the right needs. Probably funding is not going to be the barrier. I mean, I don't want to be too.
Be a ton of funding either.
Yeah.
I was involved in organizing developer meetups, developer conferences, and you don't need like the 5-star cocktail, like hotel cocktail party. No. You can do it. Like get a cheap space at university. There are ways to make things.
Order some pizza, and you're good. Yeah.
That's kind of the crowd that we're in. The pizza developer crowd,
maybe some Mountain Dew, something like that.
Some people like Red Bull, I don't know.
Yeah.
People like more caffeine. But my team loves Nitro Cold Brew.
Interesting. Did not expect that.
I mean, I guess there's a lot of caffeine in the cold brew. I don't know, but I don't. Again, I think it's what we need. So the money, I think we can get. Although we need, it's not like we have it all now. We need committed people in the community, people that are excited and want to get involved and that are going to follow through and make things happen.
Yeah, let's make all of this happen. I want to thank both Elizabeth Stark and John Pfeffer. Where can we find you, Elizabeth, online?
Twitter, Starkness.
And John, where can we find you?
Yeah, Twitter as well, @JLP Pfeffer, or LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, I want to thank both of you for being on. And, we've had a really good discussion about what it would take to sort of increase the developers in this ecosystem. I want to thank all of our viewers. I think we had about 130 at the peak. So thank you guys for watching. And we'll continue on this. We have the San Francisco Programming Blockchain next week. We have another one in New York City next month. Please donate to the addresses that are in the show notes of this video if you are interested and want to contribute to more developers being in the ecosystem.
This is awesome because I get a lot of tweets like, how can we contribute to getting more developers? So now I have something to send to people.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, thank you very much. And this song is done.